You're listening to a podcast by Way Collective, a contemplative community for love and liberation in Santa Barbara, California. This recording was the conversation starter at our dinner and dialogue gathering on April 22nd, 2026. Thanks for tuning in. Does it ever strike you on a starry night how small you are? I mean, really strike you, not just as a passing thought, but that moment where something in you has to get quiet, where you look up and for just a second, everything else, including your thoughts, fades away. And you're sort of just left staring out at the black construction paper night with all these holes poked in it so that the light can get through. Do you know that feeling I'm talking about? That sense of wonder that comes from standing before something so vast, so powerful, so beyond your control that you can't quite put it into words. This picture I'm showing you right now is one of the last nights that I was on my retreat up at Asilomar in Monterey. You can see the boardwalk here at the bottom, the dunes and the ocean. That's the earth stuff, right? Just grounded, earthy stuff. But if you look at the background here, which takes up most of the photo, you can see a soft sense of the horizon and beyond it, a sky filled with stars. I remember having that feeling that I was talking about, not only when I was there, but also many other times in nature. It was the first time that my family and I had taken a road trip out to Arizona to stand over the Grand Canyon. Looking out over that vast canyon, I had that same feeling. Or the first time I was snorkeling in Hawaii and you watch life move beneath you in this unforeseen way that you can't predict or contain. It's like there's an entire world under the sea that we don't know about. Or I remember walking through a dense redwood forest where everything feels ancient and grounded and alive in a way that humbles you but also connects you. I think we all know those places we go to experience this feeling. But here's the strange thing about those moments. When we feel small, it doesn't actually shrink us, does it? It doesn't make us less. It opens us up and it actually situates us. It orients us. It reminds us that we are part of something vast and deep, far beyond our comprehension. You know, there's a philosopher who once said, "We are tiny fragments of the universe perceiving ourselves but for a moment." And yet, we're each our own universes inside, aren't we? Internally perceiving just a fragment of the selfhood of the universe, but just for a moment. Isn't that wild? That somehow the universe has come to awareness here within you and me, briefly, beautifully, mysteriously. And this is where I want to bring us tonight, into what we might call the big mystery. Because last week we began talking about mystery as a posture, as a way of being, as something that grounds us or orients us in the present moment. But tonight I want to zoom out, way out, to consider the sheer vastness of this tapestry of reality that we are each a small part of. Because recently I came across another image that evoked that same sense of awe in me, and I want to show it to you now. This image comes from the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument, or DESI, which is mounted on a telescope in Arizona. Over the last 5 years, this instrument has been surveying huge patches of the night sky, and it's observed more than 47 million galaxies and quasars and over 20 million stars. And it's still going. DESI is going to continue observations through 2028 and expand its map from 14,000 square degrees to about 17,000 square degrees of the sky. Now, just to give you a sense of scale, the moon covers about 0.2 square degrees, and the full sky that we can observe contains over 41,000 square degrees, which means that what you're looking at in this 3D map of the universe, in this image, is only about 34% of the observable sky. It's just a fragment, and yet even within that fragment, the numbers are staggering. The most recent estimates suggest that the observable universe contains as many as, although there's some debate about this among scientists, contains as many as 2 trillion galaxies. And across those galaxies, there are something like 10 to the 24th power stars. That's more stars and potentially more Earth-like planets than all of the grains of sand on every beach on this planet. And I don't know about you, but at a certain point, those numbers sort of stop meaning anything, right? They just break the mind, because the truth is our cosmic situation is incomprehensible. It's too large for our capacity to grasp in any certain way. And yet this incomprehensible, mysterious, grandiose cosmic reality is the underlying backdrop within which all of our human dramas and tragedies and adventures take place. Every joy, every heartbreak, every political moment, every rise, every fall, every story we tell ourselves and the world, all of it is happening within this vast unfolding mystery. And what strikes me is this big mystery is behind, beneath, betwixt, and between everything that is. It's beneath our political fragmentation right now here in our country. It's beneath the histories of hate and overcoming hate that we can look at when we look through history. It's beneath our greatest democratic successes and victories. It's beneath each of our personal struggles, those things that only we carry. It holds it all. And if we're really given over to it, if we were really to awaken to it, we would spend most of our time in awe, in wonder, in connection, and in love. But we don't all the time, right? Because life is distracting, because we get pulled into the dramas of the day by our phones and our computers and our televisions and our news cycles, because our attention narrows and we forget. And so part of the invitation tonight is simply to remember. Now, for those of us who are coming from the Christian tradition, there's actually a name that's been given to this mystery, and it might not be the way we've always heard it, although we've talked about it a fair amount here at Way Collective. The name is Christ, not just the name of a historical figure, but as a cosmic reality. I know that most of you know that the word Christ comes from this Greek word Christos, meaning anointed one. But at a deeper level, it points to this recognition of the sacred dimension within all things. So Richard Rohr, in his book, The Universal Christ, puts it this way: the Christ is the divine presence in everything, something that we did not create and cannot control, but can learn to recognize. That from the very beginning, this mystery has been present in everything, holding everything together. So when we talk about Christ in this sense, we're talking not only about that mysterious love that was flowing through the life of someone named Jesus of Nazareth, but we're referring to the big mystery itself, that sacred depth of reality, the underlying presence that's in us, through us, and all around us, as we sing here every week. So for a moment, go on this thought experiment with me. In this framing, Christians then are not simply those who believe anything or believe the right thing, but they're those folks who begin to see this, who begin to recognize the sacred in all things, and who allow themselves to be grounded not in certainty, but in mystery. And this shifts everything, because it means that the goal is not to figure it all out, right? The goal is not to grasp the mystery, but instead the converse is true. The goal is to allow ourselves to be grasped by it. You know, Thomas Merton once said that this mystery beats in our very blood, whether we want it to or not, which means this isn't something we have to go out and find. It's something that courses through our veins, and we don't have much to do with making it happen, which means it's already here, it's already in us, it's already all around us. So then the question becomes, how do we remain more aware of it? You know, like, how do we cultivate a deepening sense of connection to it? Because here's what I've come to believe, and not just believe, but actually experience at times. The big mystery is what saves us. Now, I know that word salvation can carry a lot of baggage, right, for some of us. But what if salvation is not about escaping this world, but about waking up to the depth of it, about allowing the world to cradle you in its arms. What if salvation is not about getting somewhere else, but about being brought more fully aware of this mystery within you here? Because unless we realize that faith is more about allowing ourselves to be grasped by this mystery than by grasping some rigid interpretation of one earthbound religion's story, we simply cannot be saved, at least not in any way that matters. Because the truth is, we don't know. Not ultimately, not ontologically. We don't actually know what is going on here. Do you know what I mean? Like if you stop for an hour and just contemplate this, that there's a complex life form that somehow evolved in a 13.8 billion year arc of the universe's effort to have some kind of inner self-awareness, and that from cosmic dust stuff, you are the location of that universe's self-awareness, right? Heck, you don't need an hour, maybe you just need a few seconds to process that, right? And imagine with me for a moment that one of those self-aware pieces of stardust had the audacity to be certain that they know what is going on here, to know which religion is actually correct, to know what the ultimate truth is, right? I think any honest person would have to say, in the face of the big mystery and its big history, which is what we're talking about tonight, I don't really know what's going on here. There are a lot of phenomena that are playing out, and I'm just a part of it. But the reality is that admission can feel unsettling at first, right? But it can also be freeing, because when we stop pretending that we know, we become available to something deeper. We become available to love because we do know that, right? We become available to beauty because we do experience that. We become available to the full spectrum of human experience, including pain, because we do actually feel that. And somehow, all of that love and beauty and pain is held within this vast, unfolding, mysterious cosmos. Again, like we said at the outset today, it's the backdrop within which everything takes place. And when we really begin to take that in, when we really begin to feel the scale of it, something in us is invited to soften. Something in us eases up a bit, and something in us opens up. And I think we begin to realize that each of us were thrown into this existence without any choice in the matter. And despite all of its pain, despite all of the struggle, despite its tragically beautiful reality, it's beautiful to be here, and it's okay to surrender to this life. So maybe that's part of the invitation tonight too. Not to wrap our minds around the big mystery, but to let it wrap itself around us, to let it humble us, open us, and return us to a posture of unknowing, of awe, of wonder, and ultimately of surrender. Because like we talked about last week, we still have to navigate the world, don't we? We still have decisions to make. We still have to show up in our responsibilities. But underneath all of that, there is something deeper, something vast, and something more mysterious going on. So when we find ourselves getting caught up in the dramas of the day, we must ask ourselves, how do we come back? How do we return to presence? How do we remember the big mystery? Because at the end of the day, this vast, incomprehensible, mysteriously beautiful universe is not asking us to solve it or even to understand it, but to come to trust it, to rest in it, and to be held by it. It's asking us to belong to it, and maybe even in that belonging, to fall in love with it. Okay, we've got 3 contemplative conversation questions here for you to reflect on. So the first question is the self question. Can you recall a moment, like the ones described tonight, where you felt small in a way that actually opened you up? And what did that experience do to you? And how did it shift how you saw yourself? The second question is the sacred question. As you sit with the vastness of the universe and the idea that we don't ultimately know what's going on, what opens up in you? And does it feel unsettling or freeing or awe-filling or something else? And lastly, the third question is the society question. How can staying rooted in awe, mystery, and humility actually strengthen, not weaken, the way that we show up and act in the world? Thanks for listening to this podcast by Way Collective. To keep up with our community, you can subscribe to this podcast, go to www.waycollective.org, or follow us on Instagram at @waycollective. Peace and every good, y'all.